Welcome to another episode of Artist Spotlight, the podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Stringer. And as always, the podcast brought to you by our friends at the Maryland Photography Alliance, where you can check out everything they have going on in terms of events and photo contests, photo walks, and charitable things that they're doing. It's really a great resource to go online and learn more about photography and see how you can compete for prizes and scholarships and all this kind of thing. So I definitely suggest you take a look. And if you do check out the website, come back a week later. Chances are there's updated content and just really a good spot to bookmark and refer back to. And you can check that out at mdphotoalliance.org. Well, today I have a very special guest all the way from the West Coast, the lovely Paris Chong, who is the director of the Leica Gallery in Los Angeles. Just an incredibly beautiful place to go, not only, of course, to purchase Leica gear, but also to see the incredible photography that not only do they show, but that Paris curates. And with that, I'd like to welcome Paris Chong to the show.
Hey, Mitch. I'm so happy to be on your show. Your little plug for the sponsorship. Is that how you're making dough on your podcast?
Well, we haven't done the Patreons and all those things of the world,
Yeah.
but yeah, with the Maryland Photo Alliance, it's a nonprofit, and there's different charities that benefit from it, and then there's also different photography contests that they have. So it's been a lot of fun. I've been able to meet a lot of really cool people, so I'm enjoying it.
Sounds like it. Now so you've been to the gallery. Did we meet in here?
Well, you know what? It's funny. I spoke with, I'm going to drop a name here. I spoke with a buddy of yours yesterday, Jeff Garland.
Oh, I love Jeff.
Oh, he's great. He's absolutely great. Well, so I was telling him that in February of 2020, I got off the plane at LAX and I drove right to your gallery. And next thing I know, I am standing in front of the big bowl of wonderful.
Oh, you came to the opening?
I was there. Yeah.
Oh my God. So did we meet, or did we just kind of pass in the night?
Yeah. It was, well, I think Jeff was in the back of the gallery, I believe in your office. Okay. And then he came out and
we all hide when we're overwhelmed.
Well, yeah, then he came out and I think I want to say it was Alan Schaller's work.
Yeah.
That was being shown as well. And so I think it was a drive-by, so to speak, but had the absolute
time.
I know. Yeah, it was great. Yeah,
that was a great show. That show was actually supposed to be Jeff Garland and Dan Lautzen, the DP for Shape of Water and all the movies. Dan Lautzen is amazing, and I also curate for the American Society of Cinematographers, the ASC, which is like one of the greatest honors that I've ever been asked to do, because I just love working with those guys at the historic clubhouse in Hollywood. So that was planned. And then, of course, Dan, I think John Wickley or something, and it was all of a sudden had to leave town. And he was already in the process of printing his work. And he's an incredible photographer. So at the last minute, we were kind of like, we had to figure out, who I'm going to put with Jeff, because we do 2-person shows. I don't know if you've been to the LA Gallery, it's pretty huge. So, we usually try to do two different people at the same time, and it's still that person's show. But 50 images in a big space of just one artist, no matter how beautiful the artwork is or how cool the artist is, it's a lot of just the one person's work. So to give that juxtaposition of 2 different artists is always just so much better for us, more interesting, better sales, better for everybody. So I just thought, okay, maybe Jeff and I talked about a few people, and of course he has to gel with the other person, and we came up with, of course, Alan Schaller. Who wouldn't want to show with the infamous Alan Schaller? I mean, so it worked out really great, and they're both doing so well now in their art careers, both of them.
Well, I said to Jeff, I said, Alan's work is very different than Jeff's work. And, but I said that it really flowed well. I thought it was terrific. To see everybody's work. And as you said, the space is absolutely beautiful. I have so many questions for you about you and about the work that you do, because, at a high level, for the amateur photographer, it's frequently said that most pictures that people make live only on their computers and they never get printed, they never get shown. And so, within the context of a professional photographer or someone that might potentially have a gallery show, still the majority of their work never makes it to a show. It may be shown on their website or sold somewhere else, but it's a fraction nonetheless of the total images that they sell. And so, maybe you could give listeners kind of at a high level a peek inside your mind, because if someone's going to show 50 of their photos, they don't start off with 50. They start off with some greater number and then theoretically work with you to cull that down to a number that's manageable and that you feel are the most impactful. How do you even, if I'm going to show 50 photos ultimately, how do you back into that? What's the thought process?
Well, first of all, that's the saddest thing I've ever heard in my life, that half of these photos just end up on your computer. I'm like, because I never really thought about that, because I always do shows, so I get to see all the photos come to life. I don't know about that part of photography, which sounds so sad. But it's basically, I think, just I've been doing this for so long that it's just easier for me to find out what pictures I think I could sell or can work well in my particular gallery. And every market's different. So even Leica galleries, or we have 29 galleries around the world. We're so lucky. We're probably the largest around the world kind of gallery that there is. But something that does really well here in LA that won't probably do great in Miami, believe it or not, or Japan, or something that sells great in Frankfurt maybe doesn't do good in LA or Seattle. So you really have to know your market. And I think that's where I've kind of been really good at. I understand the LA market, and of course a little bit of the oh, look, Billy Zane's calling right now. I can't take Billy Zane. Wait, where is it? Billy Zane. Oh, wait, there he is. Billy Zane is coming here in January 20 next year. So anyway, so
Okay.
that's funny he called. Yeah, so I know my market, so I know what I can sell here. And of course, it took me years to figure that out. It's not like all of a sudden I stepped into Leica and I knew exactly what was going to do out here, because I'm going on this is my 11th year this year, lucky 11. When I first started at Leica, I know that Leica has such a huge history of being street photography. So I was really, really thinking, okay, even though I ran other galleries and had my own gallery and did other things, I'm like, okay, Leica street, I'm really going to stick to that street work. And so I was putting in a lot of street photography. Lots of people, Bruce Gilden and Bill Brown and Eli Reed and all these different amazing artists. And then some of it wasn't selling so great, because a lot of times I think with not those artists I mentioned, of course, I'm not saying specifically those people because they do sell well, but the street stuff I was putting in, sometimes it could be depressing. Not a lot of people want to hang pictures of starving young kids looking like they're hungry in their dining room. So I was
Sure.
just like, okay, wait a second, this isn't I'm not making any sales, and what should I do? What should I be showing? And then I realized, for the LA market, people have big mansions here. They have a lot of space here. We have a lot of space here, so people buy bigger art. So I can go make some work bigger, and a lot of just I think also the way that the world went with being a lot of depressing things happening back to back to back. People want to see happy looking things. They want to see a sunset. They want to see beach scenes. They want to see some. I hate using the word decorative. I don't, because that sounds so Z gallery and not fine art to me, but something that is kind of decorative. You know what I mean? It's like we sell a lot of those big kind of photos like that. And just when editing for a show, because of course everybody's going to show you like hundreds of photos, but you have to I would tell the artist, listen, pick your 50 best, and then we'll go from there. And then we kind of re-edit. A lot of times I work with the artist because I want them to be happy, because sometimes my favorite photo is not the artist's favorite photo, and I want the artist to always be happy with what they're presenting. I think it really, really helps as far as sales go, because technically, as much as I'm a curator and I love art, I'm also a saleswoman. I'm trying to sell art. I'm trying to make sure that people stay in business, me included, and the artists. People want to make money. So I try to go with what I think will really work well and what would sell well. So, and it's a collaboration a lot of times. I'm not a control freak, which I know a lot of people are in the art world, but I want the artist to also be happy and feel like, because there's sometimes I won't love a shot it just happened this last show. I'm like, I don't think that's strong. But then this artist was so passionate about this photo that it actually made me love the photo more, and I'm glad we put it in. But it's just you just have to kind of edit it down to what you think is going to work in your space.
Is there I had mentioned to you when we met that, I lived in Los Angeles for 3 years. Is there a Southern California aesthetic that you think generally tends to resonate with your customers of the gallery?
Oh yeah, for sure. Southern California. I mean, don't you think? I mean, there's even just the way people act and dress and walk around. It's a different vibe. It's
Sure.
so different than like New York and yeah. I mean, every big city, I mean, a small city, it has their own vibe and what's going to work. So yeah, I definitely think I've gotten really good at knowing what works here, and then I've also really kind of watch what the markets are in our other galleries in the United States and know what kind of goes well over there. Because out of the LA gallery, I think this gallery, this gallery I'm in, is the one gallery that has actually shared the most shows. Like I'll produce something here, and those are a lot of the shows that travel. So I had Julian Lennon here. Then Julian Lennon went to Japan, and he went to Sao Paulo, and he went to New York, and then Jeff Garland. I knew Jeff Garland is from Jeff Garland's a Chicago boy. So I'm like, we need to take your work to Chicago. So I got on the horn with Dad to market. I'm like, I don't even know. I'm like, where are we selling Leica in Chicago? And they said, Dan to market. So I call you. Do you know Dan?
No,
He's
no, I like the
he
story
has the
though. It's great.
rangefinder gallery. He's amazing. Everybody needs to know Dan Tamarkin, and he's a great guy. And I call him up. I said, "Hey, Dan, I'm Paris Chong from Leica Gallery LA, and I want to bring Jeff Garland's show there because he's from Chicago and his show is amazing, Big Bowl of Wonderful." And he's like, "Let's do it." And he was on a plane. 2 days later, he was standing in my gallery and came to Vicky Blue from the Runaway, Joan Jett and the Runaways. It was her show
Yeah.
next, and he showed up at the opening, and it was probably happening within a month. We had that pop up in Chicago, and so we were all in Chicago, and it did really well. This was really sad though because the night that was Victory Blue's opening, and she was showing with Al Satterwhite, who is an
Mhm.
incredible photographer. Of course, we all know him. He's had several books out. I love Al. Al Satterwhite and Vicky were showing together Victory Blue, and that was the night that all the shit hit the fan with COVID. So we're at the
Oh,
open, and all this weird stuff's happening. People are calling us saying, "Paris, I'm on my way, but the news is saying go home and get in your house and don't come out." And she's getting the same calls, and so is Al. And we're all standing there
oh,
going, "What's happening?" So the night of the opening, we normally have anywhere from 600 to 1,000 people at our openings. We had just maybe 150 people, which is very small in this big space.
mhm.
But it was because we were all getting these phone calls that people were being told to not come out of the house. Something very bad's going on, and there's a weird virus, and everyone was scared, and people didn't show up. So that happened at their opening, and then a couple days later was the riots, the Black Lives Matter riots, and the whole entire street where we are looked like Afghanistan from all the there was all this stuff, people were smashing all the windows
Sure. Yeah.
and yeah, so we had to come and I mean somebody vandalized Leica. They threw all these big, we used to have these big river rocks outside, and these young kids came and smashed all the windows, came in and smashed all our display cases. And this is all special order stuff. So
Sure.
even if there wasn't a war zone outside, it would have taken a long time to get the glass. But because all of the glass was broken up and down the streets in LA, we couldn't get the glass for months. So we had to just, I mean, this was just a couple of days after their opening, and the GM from the store, James, is calling me, "Paris, get to the gallery right now to get all the art off of the walls." So I came in here, and Vicky was still in town. So Victory Blue and I were just taking all the art off the walls, putting it in storage. It was just unbelievably it wasn't even like it felt so surreal. And so that happened. But then and the happy story is that we did take Jeff to Chicago, and of course I knew it would do well, and it did very well in Chicago. And so I knew that market. I knew where Jeff would do good. Would I send Jeff Garland's work? I mean, the Big Bowl of Wonderful, I think he went to Bellevue. It did well there, and I'm trying to get it into the New York store. But say somewhere like Sao Paulo or Tokyo, where they don't know who Jeff Garland is, that we
Yeah.
wouldn't I wouldn't send the work there. So you definitely have to know your art market and what goes well in other places. But I'm definitely on the I know what's happening in America. I'll say that much.
Do you see a consumer preference between black and white versus color
Nope, I
images?
sure don't. I
No.
really don't. I mean, I mean, technically, the fine art vintage street stuff's going to be in black and white, but I sell just as much color as I do black and white. But serious collectors, I think, will kind of lean towards more of the black and white vintage look. Again, in LA, it's a colorful, sunny place, and there's colorful, sunny people, and we sell a lot of color work here too.
Well, just to sort of tie back to what we were talking about a moment ago and to give you context. So I'm getting ready to head to Vietnam and Borneo. I'll be there
Wow.
collectively for about 3 weeks for photography. And I will probably shoot, since wildlife is a big part of Borneo, whereas street photography and cultural photography is the focus in Vietnam. I'll probably come back with 10,000 images
Just
and
10,000?
only. And of those 10,000 images, while I'm editing at night and on flights and so forth, I'll probably pick out maybe 40 what I would call selects out of that number. Now, bear in mind, if I'm photographing an orangutan, I might have 12 or 16 images because it's the image specifically where that orangutan is looking towards me or towards their baby in such a way and the light is hitting just right. It's not a spray and pray kind of thing photographically, but moments happen and scenes evolve. So 35 images, you're picking, probably none of them are bad, but you're picking the best one of those. So,
Right.
to my point about photos living on a computer, out of 10,000 images, I might have 40 that I feel good about. I might have 6 or 8 that I think these are really strong. But my point in saying this is, if you looked at 10,000 of the images, you may or may not pick out the same 40 that I did, or you might see something in an image that I didn't see because you can look objectively. You don't have an emotional attachment to being there. So I can see, I can see how important a collaboration is between
Mhm.
the photographer and a curator, just as it was for me with my Cuba book, with me and my editor, because she would say, if we're going to juxtapose these two pictures on opposite pages, I really think that putting this one on the right side, this one on the left side, it has a flow to it or a balance to it, because I wouldn't necessarily have thought that. So, do you get into that depth of collaboration with the photographers, or as you said, are they kind of bringing you what they feel is the best?
No, I definitely go through that with the photographers all the time. But you know what? What I do find though is that usually you will end up being kind of on the same page about a specific image that's really good. You can always just tell that really good image out of 40 pictures, you'll probably come up with the same image. That's the best one. It's not too hard, I don't think, to pick out the best image out of a group like that. But then again, yeah, a lot of artists are attached to their babies, and so you have to kind of persuade a little bit here and there. But I think it's usually easy to pick out the best photo. But you know what I think is really funny is that or interesting is that it's always that first photo that was the best. Do you ever find that? You
Absolutely.
took
Yep.
100 photos, but really it was the very first photo that was the best photo.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's a sort of an interesting point, because sometimes someone will show you a portfolio, and for some reason in their mind they wanted to have 20 images in that portfolio. And as you're looking at it, you may give them advice along the lines of, you have 15 really strong images. So don't
Mhm.
feel compelled to fill out the portfolio with 20 if the last 5 are not really as strong as the
Yeah.
first 15.
Yeah, you never want a bad photo bringing down the good photos. I think that happens a lot too, because they want more instead of what's the best. Like I think one of the things I always say, especially when I'm curating, and sometimes people show up with way more photos than I asked for that we agreed on. All of a sudden, there's like 10 extra framed photos, So I'm like, wait a minute, my favorite saying is less is more. You want the best, not the most. So. And there's nothing worse than a beautiful photo being brought down by a bad photo. And that can happen if you aren't, you're not careful about how you select your photography.
Now, do you spend a lot of time or some time talking about the paper upon which photos are going to be printed for showing in the gallery?
I would hate to say this because I know people are obsessed with the paper, but no, I do not because I'm
Okay.
not a photographer. I'm a curator and I love art. But I know a lot of people want to talk about the lens and the colors and the paper. At a lot of people, especially artists that are sponsored by a paper brand, they want to talk a lot
Sure.
about the paper. And I know so many artists are very particular about what paper they use. But do I personally talk about paper? No. I don't care. I don't care what you print it on as long as it looks beautiful. But I will say that I definitely can tell the difference between the nicest, high quality, gorgeous paper and just a kind of an average paper. There was a guy that I never saw anything so beautiful, and they stopped making the paper. There was a gentleman, he did all these vintage, what was his name? Glenn Craig. He did these vintage photos of Miles Davis. And the
Okay.
paper was so rich and luxurious. I noticed right away these are some of the most beautiful prints I've ever seen in my life. And he said, yeah, it's because of this particular paper that was made, and they don't make it anymore. So I mean, I think it does. Do I talk about it a lot? Me, no, I don't talk about it a lot, but I do think it's important because I trust my artists that are coming in here to Leica. I mean, if I'm working with a Leica photographer, I'm kind of spoiled. Chances are that guy's going to be good, right? Or that girl. So they know what they're doing. So I trust what paper they're using. I don't think it's part of what I do to have to talk about the paper. Try to sponsor me for any paper gigs anytime soon.
So,
Sorry.
so years ago, I was in Florence, Italy, and I was there with a couple of other photographers. And there was a photographer there from Germany, and he was very proud of Leica. He was very proud of Hahnemühle paper,
Yeah.
and and I'm going to use the word stuck. I was stuck in a car with him for almost 2 hours as
Ouch.
he gave a professorial level breakdown of paper. And
Okay.
after about 40 minutes, I said, I'm going to have to be rude here. You have to stop. He was talking about cotton content.
Oh yeah.
And it was either I'm rude and I nicely ask him, like, can we change the subject? Or I literally jump out of the car.
No, I wouldn't want to be stuck in a car with Viggo Mortensen talking about paper. And I would be so upset after. And I love Viggo Mortensen. But I wouldn't want to talk about that with that, for that long. I think it's okay to, I don't think it's rude. I think it's kind of okay. I think it's one of the rites of passage. As one of the most beautiful things about aging is that it's a part of your rite of passage to just be clear and nice and polite about it, but just say, you know what, I don't want to hear about that, and it's nothing personal. That's not what I want to talk about, and I certainly wouldn't want to talk about that. Do I know this person? Did you say you met him in
No,
Germany?
yeah, well, he's
Oh,
from Germany, but I wouldn't necessarily think you know him.
you didn't meet
You know,
him at West.
no. It's funny when I talk about just getting older and so forth. I say, I don't regret any of it. I don't want to turn back time. I appreciate that as I get older, I'm at a point where I've gained a lot of experience, but I'm still young enough to do anything I want with that experience. I'm not
Yeah,
I'm
no,
not
you
in a
have to have
wheelchair.
boundaries. Yeah, no, I mean, of course, I loved being in my 20s. I'm not gonna lie, it was fun being a hot chick in my 20s. I loved it, but and I noticed the difference of how I was treated then. I remember and I miss it, but I also think that it's such a luxury to age and grow older and wiser and more experienced. And I mean, I have a son, so I want to be here forever. I'm happy to be, super old and wrinkly, and as long as I can be here, I'm going to be happy. Aging is a luxury, and I don't know why so many people are so scared of it, but it's actually been a beautiful thing for me to, just like all the different, every decade you can feel like the differences, the good and bad, and I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy. I'll be a happy 90-year-old something lady if I can be. I'm not going to complain about being old.
Well, I will bring up just today. I saw a stunning picture of you on social media in a red dress on
Oh.
and I thought, wow, she looks phenomenal. So don't sell
Oh.
yourself even a little
No,
bit
no, no.
short.
Thank you. Thank you. That picture was taken last summer by Sylvie Blum, who
Oh, sure.
I love Sylvie Blum. We're getting ready to get her books. Her books are in here. I'm
Mhm.
in the book, by the way. Thank to Paris Chong. Woo, woo, woo. I'm in 8 books. I'm in Rolling
Wow.
Stones edition. I'm in Jesse Diamond's book. I'm in the new book, All That Life Can Afford, Matt Stewart, and Matthew Bouton. I'm in a few books. Julian Lennon. I mean, I can't tell you how proud I am that my name's in the back of some of these great books. So yeah, no, Sylvie did that photo for me last summer. She's known for her nude photography. You know, Sylvie was married to Gunter Bloom. And
Hmm.
so she was photographed by Helmut Newton and all these famous photographers. Her nude photos are in museums, and we talked about I've never done a nude photo in my life, and I never will. But I was going to attempt it with Sylvie, because if I was going to do it, I would do it in front of a woman, because I'm very shy. It's my bad Catholic upbringing to cover up, and being tortured by my grandma Chong and my mother. So I thought I'd give it a go, but I was just too shy to do it. So hence the red dress.
It was really a beautiful picture. It really was.
Thank you. And that was taken at Herb Ritzold's studio that Sylvie's in now. Isn't that
Well,
cool?
speaking of Herbert's studio and Sylvie, shame on me, was not aware of Sylvie's work until I listened to the Paris Chong Show, your
What?
podcast.
You're
Yes.
kidding.
No, no.
Oh,
So I will admit this. So I, for example, did not know that Billy Zane was a photographer as well as a
oh,
phenomenal actor.
yeah. Oh my God. And he called. Isn't that weird? Oh my God. So you learn a lot on the Paris Chong show.
Yeah, I'm waiting for you to have Cartier-Bresson on. I can't wait for that
Oh
episode.
yeah, I'm gonna do that'll be with my seance series with my girlfriend Star Oakland. She brings people back from the my yeah, thank you for saying that you saw that, because Sylvie's just she's represented by Fahey Klein. So because David Fahey helped her do her book, I have to wait till she does her show with him later this year. But I'm bringing Sylvie in 2027. She's opening up the year. I've been wanting to work with her forever, but it's because of this book we haven't been able to do her show sooner. And she's going to be borrowing the Leica SL3, because that's supposed to
Hmm.
be a really great camera for fashion work. And she does shoot with Leica sometimes, and she used to use a lot of I think she used a Hasselblad, but I heard this weird thing about Hasselblad, and I think it's from Sylvie and a couple other photographers, and also Mona Kuhn's coming in soon. She's an amazing photographer. Hasselblad doesn't have a customer care now in America anymore, so a lot of people aren't wanting to use that camera anymore. So they're coming over to the bright side of things, and they're going to start using Leicas, which, again, I'm not a photographer, but I do know that the Leica camera is a special camera, and that the lens is what makes it so special and unique. And that, for what also say this again, if I'm repeating myself, I'm sorry, but for whatever reason, Leica cameras make everyone look more beautiful and like they're having way more fun than they really are. So, I don't know how it is, but you take a picture with the Leica and it looks like you are just the most beautiful, happy person on the planet. It's just an amazing tool. And I think that
Yeah.
although they're a pricey tool, you have to invest in your craft and your career, and it really says something about how you feel as a photographer if you're investing in a Leica camera. So, and then if you want to work with me, you can only show me Leica work at this gallery. So it's a good reason to have a Leica, right?
Well, I will be on the streets of Vietnam with my Q3.
Oh,
So,
just like Nick was. I hate the story about Nick. Isn't that horrible? Oh, that weird.
oh yeah, yes,
I
yes,
stand by Nick all the way. He took the photo. No one's going to convince me otherwise. I don't want to hear
yeah.
about it. He's one. He's a gem. That guy. He's about who does that? Brings out something like that 50 years after the fact. What a weirdo.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
Well,
you just decided now you want to just whatever.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So you obviously have been curating 20 years, etc. But if we turn back the clock just a little bit, there was a time when you were modeling.
Yeah, there was, and
And and so
that's
my question is, as a young woman who spent a few years doing that, what was your recollection of just the interaction with those photographers in that era? Because clearly that was a very different era in photography, in fashion photography, than it is now. There's been lots of reasons for that. But what was it like to be a young person in that world at that time?
It was amazing. It was before the whole it was some of the, what, at the time it didn't seem really fun, but now looking back, it was very cool. This is so ridiculous, but when I was young, I grew up in Las Vegas, believe it or not. I'm from Maryland, though. We talked about this. We're both from
Tacoma
Maryland.
Park.
Tacoma Park. So is Kwaku Alston. We're all from Maryland.
Oh,
So you got to
wow.
have him on the show. You got to have Kwaku Alston. He's amazing, and he
Okay.
from Maryland. I insist. And so there was a Ford modeling agency was going around the country scouting young girls at different malls, and they had just built the fashion show mall in Las Vegas. And so there was like some little corny competition, and at the time, Vegas was still such a small town, but really cool. I'm really proud that I'm from Vegas and I grew up there. It was a great place to be from. So my girlfriend and I were like, we're going to get out of here and we're going to win in this game. We're going to enter this contest and get out of here. And I was actually scouted. So Ford told me, we need more pictures. Come and see me. My dad's so cute. My Maryland dad from Ashton, Maryland. He took me to New York to meet with Ford, and then I moved there, and I stayed at this hotel called the Martha Washington. And back in the day, I think it was like the Barbizon. It was supposed to be this really glamorous, cool hotel for young women and models and actresses to stay. And Bosom Buddies with Tom Hanks.
Of
The
course.
first TV show he did was him and his friend had to dress up like girls to try to stay there to get cheap rent or whatever. So they
Yep.
had to pretend they were girls. That was the Martha Washington. It was based on that place with all the
Okay.
actresses and models. But my dad was like so cute. I was staying there, but like I guess back in the day, my dad's day, like it was really glamorous. But by the time I got there, it was just like all these really butch women trying to rape me and kill me. It wasn't glamorous at all. I'm like, Dad, I think I'm gonna get raped in here by a woman. It was so bad. I can't even believe I lived there, and it was just nuts. And so I was living in New York, working, and then I ended up going on a date with the guy, and he took me to Madison Square Gardens, where I ended up meeting later at a nightclub, the Club Aria, which is still unbelievable, the best club I've ever been to in my life in New York City back in the day. And I'm really dating myself. And I went to Club Aria and I met my ex-boyfriend who played bass in Culture Club. So then I moved to London and was working for Premier in UK, which is still one of the most reputable modeling agencies. And David Bailey saw photos of me, the infamous David Bailey, and he thought I looked like a young Marie Helvin. So he said, let's get this girl in here and test her. And because David Bailey took photos of me, I got hired left and right. So they're like, oh my God, I didn't even know who he was. They're like, David Bailey wants to take photos of you. I'm like, okay, who is that? And then I still can't believe I got to be photographed by a legend, like a living legend, like David Bailey. And that I won't say that was the best experience I ever had. And yes, I still have the photos, although I don't want anyone to see them because I looked so 80s, the makeup, the hair. He was hard to work. He was a little harsh, but
Why? What was that like? What was that like?
he was I was so nervous because everyone made it hyped. It was great. I mean, again, looking back, it was great, but he was kind of like, very English and very crass. And he was like, come on, move, you cow. And I was like, what did you say? I'm like, I'm 115 pounds. Why is he calling me a cow? It's kind of like harsh, but the photos were gorgeous. And he was nice after I went to go pick up the photos and he was really nice. He's just kind of stressed out, hyper kind of English dude. But that was interesting. And I hate to say this because I worked with some really amazing photographers in Europe, some of the best, and I can't really remember everybody's name. But what's been really lovely is now cut to here and all these incredible photographers I've gotten to meet. And I was able to, like, all these really awesome photographers have now asked to do portraits of me and photos of me, like Sylvie, and it was like so cool. And I'm really enjoying doing the photos now, like not in my youth. It's just been way more fun. And working with Sylvie was incredible. And I did photos with this woman named Tina Crone that I just love. And she wanted to do photos. She was like, Paris, I want to take your photos. And I'm like, oh, girl, I don't need any photos of myself. You're good. You don't owe me nothing. And she goes, no, no, no. I want to take your photos. I've been wanting to photograph you for years. So I was like, oh, okay. So we ended up going to do these photos at a friend of mine's house. And I'm so glad I did them because I love them. And it just was a really good experience. And she was so easy to work with. And when you're working with if you're a photographer that wants to work in fashion and work with models and with in that realm. It really does help if the photographer it helps pose certain positions and give you a little tips and stuff. So I think sometimes a lot of photographers think you're just going to get out there and move like Jerry Hall or something, but you know it's good to give some suggestions. And when you're on the other side of the camera, you kind of know what looks better. If someone's foot's tweaking or hair sticking out, you need to direct that. You know, it was the good old days.
Well, I would imagine that now, as a woman, and you've seen enough photography, you've been a model, at some point that you have, you're comfortable in your skin. And especially if you're working with a photographer who you sort of gel with,
Yeah.
they're extremely talented, you're in good hands and you're collaborating. It probably is a very comfortable experience, I would think.
I'm way more comfortable now than when I was younger. I even thought that like now when I was doing something, I'm like, God, if I could have been a little bit more confident like I am now back in the day, I would have probably been on a lot more covers and stuff. Because I got on a couple of covers in England and I did get to be in an ad in English Vogue and I did get booked at, Italian Elle and I was getting all these good jobs, but it wasn't where my head was at the time because I wanted to sing and I wanted to be with my boyfriend in a famous band and travel around the world. So it was kind of cute too because I was talking recently to that same ex-boyfriend in the band, and he said, I always feel really kind of guilty that I took you away from all of that because you were doing so good. Like you were getting these amazing jobs and you were doing so good, but you kind of didn't do it. And I thought I wasn't supposed to do it. It wasn't supposed to be that way. And I don't regret a single thing I've done. The good, the bad. It's part of my life. It's part of my story. I'm going to roll with it.
Sure. Well, yeah, you can't change it. So you
Yeah.
just kind of
Yeah.
absorb it.
No, and Andy Warhol and David Bowie and Michael Hutchins and all these people that I would have never ever got to meet. Queen, what was it, Princess Anne, and I mean, just a really amazing group of people I got to meet back in the day because of him.
Well, speaking of musicians and that sort of thing, in your role at the gallery, you interact with people who have significant careers. They could be singers or actors or models, but they also have a real affinity for photography. And so
Hmm.
I know that you're very friendly with Jason Momoa and certainly, Jeff and Billy Zane, and there's others. So my question is, do you see any common thread in the individuals who are very successful in their particular profession, but also have a real serious talent and enjoyment in photography? Are there any through lines that you see in those kind of people?
There sure is one thing that they all have in common, and it's Leica. They all love that camera. They all love their Leica camera, and they want to be Leica photographers. So Julian Lennon, Jason Momoa, Billy Zane, they all have Leicas. They all want to shoot with Leica. And it's cool. I mean, you wouldn't believe, I mean, I'm in LA, so of course we see more celebrities than other places, but you wouldn't believe the people that walk in the store that want to buy. I mean, we just had Eddie Vedder walk out of here with some Leica cameras. He was just, I mean, every day, but I think it's good because we're so used to seeing celebrities, we don't get starstruck or anything, but it's just like it's the camera. It's the Leica
Mhm.
camera is what the common thread is with the people that you mentioned.
And people have tried to define this, so I'll give you an opportunity to try, and that is the Leica look, as people call it.
The
What do
Leica
you
look.
think that is? Do you think it is something, or what's your thought on that?
Is there a look? You mean, I don't think there's as much a look at the pictures as there is about how beautiful the cameras are and designed. There's like the look of the Leica that I think people are really interested in. Is there a look? I don't. And you mean in the pictures?
Yes.
I mean, definitely there's a look. I mean, I think you're gonna maybe tell more so in the vintage work, but there's
Mhm. Yeah.
definitely something crisp and clear about the Leica work. And I think I even think it's kind of funny because I'm so involved with Leica. It's a family and a community that is intertwined in so many ways, but it's like this weird little club that everybody wants in on. And it's very, and sometimes that feels sort of high school to me, but it's like who are the popular kids, so
Sure.
it's
The
kind of,
cool kid
it's
table.
kind of funny. All I know is I'm glad I'm one of the popular kids because I wouldn't want to be like the kid that I was in June and was at elementary school that was the last kid to get picked when it was sports.
uh,
Remember? Oh, that was so horrible for me. And I'm so glad I outlived that trauma because that was really traumatic for me because I was so bad at sports that I get like that terrifying feeling knowing you're going to get picked last. So I'm really glad that's not happening. And I'm in the popular kids crew, which is like the Leica crew, the Leica. It's like I don't know, it's something really weird about it. Like everyone wants in this club, private club or something.
Speaking of the club, as you call it, when I was in New York a few weeks ago, and that's where we met,
Yeah.
I had no expectation about how well attended the 100th anniversary celebration for Leica would
Wasn't
be.
that nuts?
I was blown away. I mean,
Yeah.
thousands of
Hmm.
people, literally
Hmm.
on a weekday, the Friday, thousands. And
Yeah.
you were in the little pop-up
Oh
across
my
from the
God, that
store.
hot pop-up, the air conditioner was broken on a hot day. Were you there
It
when
was like a
Jason came in,
sauna.
when Jason Momoa came in? Were you
Yeah,
there?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that was insane. They did, I guess they rented the space for a little pop-up and then whoever they rented it from, oh, by the way, air conditioner doesn't work. It was brutal. But yeah, it was a whole block party with thousands and thousands of people. Again, it's just people are really loyal to this brand, to the community, and loyal to what the camera does, I guess.
Well, and one thing that I noticed is, Leicas are great cameras. I mean, we know that they're reliable, certainly, and just beautiful. But I think because of the craftsmanship, you see a lot of pre-owned cameras, which
Hmm.
allows people to get into the brand at a
Yes.
lower cost than if they were going to buy
And I
something.
think it's great. I think that's great.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. And as I looked at the crowd, you had everything from, people carrying whatever camera that they own at the time, potentially, looking at Leica as an aspirational brand that at some point
Hmm.
maybe that's a system they could get into. But then you also saw photographers walking around with three Leicas like they were jewelry. And I thought,
Oh
well,
yeah,
that might be
it's man jewelry. It's all jewelry. Yeah, no, it is like jewelry. You should see at our shows, everyone's walking around like I've got my
it's funny though because it is a rabbit hole that if you can afford to and you choose to, you can go down because using like the
oh yeah.
M11 as the example, you've got the M11, you've got the M11, this monochrome, you've got the new Safari version, you've got the 100th anniversary version, you've got, I mean,
Mhm.
it's really something. You could just go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, and some people do. I'm always surprised how many people. I mean, how many? They're. I mean, they're not they're expensive cameras. So
Mhm.
there are so many people here that have every single camera. Some people collect them.
Mhm.
Someone showed me somebody. I met somebody who showed me her father's camera collection. He had every single one, and it was like all in this case. So. Yeah, you could go down a rabbit hole. And you know what, though? If you're going to use it and you're going to produce beautiful work with it and you're going to, pursue your passion and your creativity, then they're worth it.
Well, I think, for someone like myself, when I'm in I mean, I could be in the US, I could be, in some other country, walking the streets of Bangladesh and surrounded by hundreds of thousands of people. But when I have this camera, I'm in a zone.
Yeah.
I'm in a
What
zone.
camera do you have?
What, as far as Leica goes, you're like, yes, because that's the only brand that
I'm like, yes,
exists.
no, that's exactly what I'm asking. No, but
Yes.
no, actually, no, really, no, I'm not even just like, what camera do you use?
Yeah. So I have the SL3, I
Okay.
have the M11, and I have both of the Q2s, the 43 and the 28.
So what are you taking with you on that trip?
As far as what I'm taking for Leica, I'm between the Q3 and the Q3 43.
Okay.
And there are other cameras that it's like, what is it, Harry Potter, Voldemort, we shall not speak the name, but there are other brands that I'm
Okay.
taking because there are, in my experience, certain use cases like high speed photography, where
Yeah, no,
autofocus
you can't
is
only just
is
use a Leica if
critical.
you're, you can't, there's a lot of camera, there's a lot of photographers I love that don't shoot Leica because that doesn't
Yeah.
work for what they're doing. It's there, I
Yeah.
don't, there's no shame in their game. I
Sure,
don't
of
shame
course.
for what they use, but it's, it's just, it's just, I'm just so used to hearing about Leica because,
So for me, what I'm trying to debate in my head is if I'm walking the streets of Vietnam and it's a lot of sensory overload,
yeah,
colors and people and stuff, the 28, the Q3 with the 28 millimeter is great because it's great in low light. And one thing that is really impressive to me, there are a number of cameras that have digital zoom.
mhm,
And to me, a lot of those digital zooms are not great. The results are not great.
right,
And when I've used either the Q3 or the Q343, that digital zoom, to get from 28 to 35 to 50, to me, those images with digital zoom look fantastic still, even though it's digital zoom. And if I'm shooting raw and JPEG, then of course I still retain the raw file. So that's as large as I want it to be. So as a everyday carry, walk around the streets of Vietnam, it'll either be the Q3 or the Q343. And the reason it's not the M11 is because it's twofold. One is the M11 is not weather sealed, and
mm,
it is extremely hot and extremely humid in Vietnam and Borneo. It's 90 degrees and 85 to 90% humidity. And I really want something weather sealed. And you get these periodic huge downpours as well. So
when are you leaving?
I leave Saturday night.
Well, I can't wait to see the photos.
Well, I can't wait to show them to you.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's so that's sort of the debate. But no, I'm super excited for that. And yeah, I'm gonna be kind of all over, while I'm there. So here's a question for you, and you mentioned this a little bit earlier about the size of prints that you have in a show. I've heard people say, and probably about a lot of things, bigger is better. The bigger the print, it's more impressive.
Yeah.
But do you find that when you look at a print and you look at a few different sizes, are there times when you say that's just too big of a print for that particular image? Let's back it down to the next smaller size, or is it just a function of what you think sells in your market, really?
I don't know. I think I do like big prints, but there's definitely some times when I think I more so see something that's smaller of thinking that would look way better larger, and I'll tell the artist that. But we work with our standard size here is 20 by 24, and then it goes up to 30 by 40 and then 40 by 60. But I think we're like one of the few galleries that sell a lot of 40 by 60s again because of the space of the homes in Los Angeles. Now, people in New York aren't looking for 40 by 60 prints because people, we don't sell as many big prints in New York. We sell smaller prints, but 20 by 24 is what we have these beautiful new frames from Germany. So we work a lot with that so that the artist doesn't have to pay for the framing when they're shipping in art for shows. So because the framing can be cost a fortune. We supply the frames here for the artist. So we have mainly 20 by 24s. We have a few 30 by 40s, and then each artist can use 140 by 60, which sometimes I think 20 by 24 is too small for some of the beautiful photos we have here. But again, we don't want them to have to go and spend all this money on framing. So I just think that it depends on what you're looking for and where you're planning to put it. But for me, I'm gonna have to lean on the side of bigger is better on this one. So I love big prints. I do. I think they're great. I don't have room for them at my house, but I think they look amazing.
Now, do you do a lot of photography yourself?
But I hate to say this, but it's the truth. I love my iPhone. I do have a Leica, but I like to take pictures on my iPhone, and I will say that just because I look at so many photos all the time by so many great photographers, I take really good pictures. I wish I could get more into it. They're too techy. I'm always just kind of taking snapshots here and there, and I like making my little videos. And that's how I got the Q2 is because one of our, when I took Sebastião Salgado to the Leica Boston store, and I was taking pictures of Salgado with his beautiful wife, and one of our retail guy that was like, Paris, what are you doing? Why are you shooting Salgado with your iPhone? So then that's how I kind of got the key. But no, I don't. I just like to take phone pictures. I know that's terrible to say, but it's the truth, and I'm truthful.
No, that's okay. So of the so you know as we sort of move to wrapping a little, who would you say would be two of your favorite photographers that are either not with us anymore or not really active anymore? And then who are two of your favorites that are currently out there creating new images all the time?
Oh, I like this question. I love Scavullo. I love
Hmm.
the fashion photographer Scavullo.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how I grew up looking at those images on Cosmopolitan with Gia and Christy.
Oh, Gia, sure.
I was a young girl when I saw those photos, and they really are gorgeous portraits. I loved Scavullo, and I love Mary Ellen Mark. I wish I could have met her in person. I just missed her. She just was here right when I started. I had one phone conversation with her. That was about it. But I love Mary Ellen Mark's work a lot. And current, God, I have so many that I love. I mean, I love so many photographers. That's too hard. I mean, I do love Alan Shaller's work. I love Ralph Gibson's work. I love Eli Reed's work. I love, we have young Adlai Shell up right now who hand printed his whole show. I love his work. I love them all. Matt Stewart, I love them all. There's too many. That's like asking me what my favorite song is. It's like there's so many that I just it's hard to pick, but for sure that's not with us anymore. I'd say Scavullo and Mary Ellen Mark. Remember
So if
Scavullo? I
of
love
course,
Scavullo.
was it Francisco Scavullo?
It's Francesco Scavullo.
Yeah.
Scavullo. That was my first person I'd admired as a photographer.
So if you had to have a glass of wine while walking around the gallery looking at a new show before it opens, what wine would that be?
Wow, that's a good question. Maybe a glass of Opus.
Okay.
I love Opus, but I love red wine. Oh, it was just here last Friday. I mean, his wine was very good. Gerald Cassell from Devo, and he
Oh,
has a
really?
he has a winery. Yeah, and it's called 50 by 50, and he brought the wine. And I really loved his wine. That's another thing. It's like asking my favorite song. There's a few I love, but my go-to favorite, very reasonable that I love is Santa Margarita Pinot Grigio. I just love
Okay.
that wine. That's my
All right.
go-to.
So you didn't know we talk photography and wine.
I love wine. I did a pop-up in Napa, well in what is it, Hillsburg? Oh no, St. Helena. I
Okay.
did a
Yeah.
pop-up
What a
last year
quaint town.
with Faust Vineyards, who also does Quintessa and Flowers wine. I did a pop-up up there with the Jim Marshall Estate and Melanie Pullen and Dominique Crenn, the Michelin star chef.
Hmm.
And
Very
we
nice.
did a little pop-up up there in a winery because I had to check that off my bucket list because I always wanted to do a art show at a winery because I love art and I love wine.
It's so perfect. It just goes together.
I'm simple.
Well, that
I'm simple. I love art and wine.
now, do you ever notice the most complicated people tell others how simple they are? Like, oh, I'm
Oh,
so easygoing.
no, I think I am. I actually do think I am, but no, I don't notice that.
I remember seeing an interview, and I can't remember who it was, but this lady, she lives in the Hamptons, has this
Okay.
massive mansion, on the water, and she says, I just like this simple life. I spend my day barefoot. I go and I garden, and
Yeah,
then
that's the kind
maybe
of
play.
simple life I want. I want a
Yeah,
simple life like that. I want a
yeah,
simple life
yeah.
like that.
Sign me
Yeah.
up too. So I know, Paris, that listeners are going to want to follow, what you're doing as far as social media, and I'm sure they're going to be curious and want to listen to the podcast. What's the best
Yay.
way for people to stay up on everything you have going on?
Well, thank you for asking, Mitch. I'm coming up on 1 year. June 12th is my 1 year anniversary for the Peach Ho Show at the Paris Chong Show. The Paris Chong Show is at Peach Ho Show, and you could see it on Spotify, Apple, iTunes, and YouTube. And it was just kind of a fun. I actually was a guest on someone's podcast, and then it kind of organically turned into my show. But it's been really fun doing it. And as you know, it's a lot of work. It's like
Oh yeah.
It's another full-time job. And I just had Mark DiPaolo and Bill Brown in this and Desiree Arstoga this weekend. And they're, Mark's beautiful assistant Sage was like, how are you doing this on top of running the gallery? This is a full-time job. And it really is. And it's a labor of love, but I've been having a lot of fun doing it. So just trying to let it run for the year. Then we'll go after those kind of sponsors like you have at MD, what is it? MDPhotoAlliance.org.
You got it. Yeah. Yeah. That's it. Well, I want to thank you, Paris, for taking the time. It was
Thank
fantastic
you.
to meet you, and I'm sure that we will we'll certainly be meeting again. And I can't wait to
Yes.
get out to LA and come into the
Yeah.
gallery.
Yeah. Come back and we'll go have some wine.
That sounds good. That sounds good. And for everybody listening, I want to thank you for joining us. A reminder that we publish on the 1st and 15th of every month. And if you want to check out what I have going on, you can, of course, go to Mitch Stringer Images on Instagram. You can also go to the same online, see what I have going on. If you have any questions about gear and travel and other wine selections of Paris Chong, just feel free to ask, and I'll get you the answer. And until next time when we connect, I wish you great light. I wish you great shooting. We'll talk again soon.